Welcome to our philosophical deep dive. I'm your host, and today we're exploring one of Friedrich Nietzsche's most controversial and misunderstood ideas about relationships, gender dynamics, and the psychological barriers between greatness and companionship. What did this 19th century philosopher observe about the tensions between pursuing greatness and maintaining intimate relationships? And how might these insights apply to our modern world? Friedrich Nietzsche wasn't just any philosopher. He was a revolutionary thinker who challenged the very foundations of Western thought. Born in 1844 in Prussia, he began as a brilliant philologist before turning to philosophy. By age 24, he was appointed professor at the University of Basel, an extraordinary achievement that highlighted his intellectual prowess. Nietzsche's personal life contrasts sharply with his intellectual success. He never married, had few close relationships, and lived much of his productive life in isolation. His own experiences with women were limited and complicated, including his rejected marriage proposal to Lou Salome, a brilliant intellectual in her own right. His philosophical journey ended tragically with his mental collapse in 1889, leaving him under the care of his sister Elizabeth until his death in 1900. This biographical context matters because it informs his perspective on relationships and greatness. He was writing not just as a philosopher, but as someone who lived the tensions he described. In Beyond Good and Evil, particularly in sections 236 and 239, Nietzsche presents several provocative observations about male-female relationships. The claim we're exploring today emerges from these passages. Nietzsche suggests that women often prefer men who are all too human, with ordinary weaknesses and flaws, rather than those who embody exceptional greatness or are devoted to higher pursuits. To fully appreciate this claim, we need to understand that for Nietzsche, greatness wasn't about social status, wealth, or conventional success. Rather, greatness meant intellectual or creative independence, the courage to challenge societal norms, self-overcoming, and the pursuit of higher values, and dedication to goals beyond personal comfort or security. Let's examine what Nietzsche actually wrote. In Beyond Good and Evil, aphorism 238, he states, "To be mistaken in the fundamental problem of man and woman, to deny here the most abysmal antagonism and the necessity of an eternally hostile tension, perhaps to dream here of equal rights, equal education, equal claims and obligations, that is a typical sign of shallow-mindedness." In the same section, he suggests that women's fundamental will expresses a preference for men who represent the animal rather than the spirit. In aphorism 237, he writes, "Women want to serve and in that find their fulfillment. The natural opposite is the man who wants to serve and in that finds his fulfillment." To better understand Nietzsche's provocative claim, we need to connect it to his broader philosophical framework. For Nietzsche, all life strives toward power, not merely political power, but the expression of one's capabilities to their fullest. The great man channels this will to power into creative or intellectual pursuits rather than domination over others. The concept of the Übermensch represents Nietzsche's ideal of human potential, someone who creates their own values beyond conventional morality. This dedication to self-overcoming and higher pursuits often requires solitude and independence from societal expectations, including conventional relationships. Nietzsche believed there is no single, objective truth, only perspectives shaped by our experiences and positions. His views on gender reflect his particular perspective as a 19th century male intellectual, not universal truths. When Nietzsche wrote about greatness, he often spoke of the necessity of solitude. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, his protagonist retreats to a mountain cave for 10 years before descending to share his wisdom. This metaphor reveals Nietzsche's belief that profound insight requires separation from ordinary society and its distractions. The pursuit of philosophical or artistic excellence demands a kind of psychological isolation that can be difficult to reconcile with intimate relationships. In Human, All Too Human, Nietzsche writes about the free spirit who must break free from conventional attachments to achieve intellectual freedom. This breaking away involves not just abandoning societal norms, but often personal relationships as well. The path to greatness for Nietzsche seems to demand a willingness to endure loneliness. Nietzsche wrote during the late 19th century, a time of rigid gender roles and patriarchal structures. Women had limited educational and professional opportunities, and marriage was often their primary path to security and social standing. The first wave of feminism was emerging during Nietzsche's lifetime, with figures like John Stuart Mill advocating for women's suffrage and education. Nietzsche was aware of these movements, but remained skeptical of simple equality-based solutions. It's crucial to recognize that Nietzsche's observations emerged from this specific historical context. Before women had voting rights, equal educational opportunities, or significant professional options beyond the domestic sphere. Looking deeper, Nietzsche's observation contains a psychological insight that transcends its gendered framing. He identifies a fundamental tension. The pursuit of exceptional achievement often requires intense focus and dedication, willingness to challenge conventions, periods of isolation and solitude, and prioritizing one's vision over immediate pleasures. These requirements can conflict with the foundations of intimate relationships: presence and availability, emotional attunement, compromise and accommodation, and shared daily life and experiences. Nietzsche observed that the single-minded pursuit of greatness, whether intellectual, artistic, or spiritual, often comes at the cost of intimate connection. The qualities that make someone exceptional may simultaneously make them difficult partners in conventional relationships. In The Gay Science, Nietzsche points to another dimension of this conflict. The exceptional individual often struggles to be understood. He writes, "Every profound thinker is more afraid of being understood than of being misunderstood." This fear stems from the recognition that truly original ideas often appear strange or threatening to others. The great man may find himself fundamentally alienated from potential partners who cannot comprehend his vision or purpose. Furthermore, Nietzsche suggests that the pursuit of greatness requires a kind of selfishness, not in the petty sense, but as a necessary dedication to one's higher purpose. In Beyond Good and Evil, he argues that every elevated culture begins with the spiritualization of cruelty. This means that the great individual must be willing to inflict a certain kind of suffering on themselves and potentially on those close to them in service of their higher goals. Nietzsche also observed a psychological dynamic in relationships where one person's achievement can create resentment or insecurity in the other. He believed that power dynamics are inevitable in human interactions, and relationships are no exception. The exceptional individual, by virtue of their greatness, might unwittingly create an imbalance that threatens relationship harmony. History provides numerous examples of exceptional individuals whose greatness coincided with complicated or limited personal relationships. Nikola Tesla remained unmarried, dedicating himself entirely to his scientific work. Emily Dickinson produced extraordinary poetry while living in increasing isolation. Ludwig van Beethoven never married despite several romantic interests. Marie Curie's devotion to science continued even after her husband's death. Albert Einstein's relationship suffered from his absorption in theoretical physics. While there are certainly exceptions, the pattern Nietzsche identified appears throughout history. Exceptional dedication to greatness often correlates with complicated personal relationships. Consider the case of Isaac Newton, who never married and had few close relationships. His obsessive pursuit of scientific and mathematical truth led to groundbreaking discoveries, but at the cost of human connection. When asked how he had accomplished his revolutionary insights, Newton replied that it was by thinking on it continually. Similarly, Franz Kafka's romantic relationships were notoriously troubled. In a letter to his fiancée, Felice Bauer, he wrote that his commitment to writing made him unsuitable for marriage. "I have often thought that the best mode of life for me would be to sit in the innermost room of a spacious locked cellar with my writing things and a lamp." For these individuals, their exceptional achievement seemed inseparable from a kind of psychological isolation that made conventional relationships difficult or impossible. Contemporary psychology offers perspectives that both support and challenge Nietzsche's observation. Research on high-achieving individuals often reveals higher rates of introversion among creative and intellectual pioneers. Flow states that require uninterrupted focus and detachment from social demands, and statistical correlations between certain forms of creative genius and relationship difficulties. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on creativity shows that highly creative individuals often experience a tension between sociability and solitude. They require deep periods of concentration that can appear selfish or neglectful to partners. Yet they also need connection and feedback to refine and share their work. Studies on the psychology of eminent scientists and artists reveal a pattern that partly confirms Nietzsche's insight. Exceptional achievement often requires what psychologist Dean Keith Simonton calls dispositional traits that can complicate relationships, traits like autonomy, nonconformity, and high introversion. However, modern research also challenges Nietzsche by showing many forms of greatness thrive with emotional support and stable relationships. The concept of emotional intelligence as essential to certain forms of leadership and achievement, and cultural variations in how achievement and relationships are balanced. Recent studies suggest that while the stereotype of the isolated genius contains some truth, many forms of exceptional achievement actually benefit from supportive relationships. The key distinction may be between types of greatness, solitary intellectual or artistic pursuits, versus more collaborative or interpersonal forms of exceptional achievement. Psychologists now recognize that emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage emotions in oneself and others, can be a form of greatness in itself. This suggests that the conflict Nietzsche identified may represent not an absolute truth, but one perspective on human achievement. Cross-cultural research further complicates Nietzsche's view. Eastern philosophical traditions often emphasize harmony between achievement and relationship rather than conflict. The Confucian concept of Ren, benevolence, suggests that true greatness includes both self-cultivation and care for others. This points to cultural variations in how achievement and relationships are conceptualized. Moving beyond Nietzsche's gendered framing, we can reinterpret his observation as highlighting a universal human challenge: the tension between extraordinary achievement and intimate human connection affects people of all genders. In our contemporary world, people of any gender may face this dilemma: the female executive whose career dedication limits her family time, the male artist whose creative obsessions make sustaining relationships difficult, the non-binary scientist whose research requires isolation and unconventional schedules. The fundamental tension Nietzsche identified transcends gender. It's about how humans balance their drive toward exceptional achievement with their need for connection. Consider the experiences of highly successful women who have discussed this very tension. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg spoke of the challenges of balancing her judicial career with family life. Novelist Toni Morrison wrote much of her early work in the margins of her day, rising before dawn while her children slept. Mathematician Emmy Noether pursued groundbreaking work in abstract algebra while remaining unmarried, in a time when academic positions for women were scarce. For these women, the pursuit of greatness involved navigating the same tensions Nietzsche identified, suggesting that the fundamental conflict transcends gender, even if its manifestations are shaped by gender norms. The experiences of LGBTQ+ individuals pursuing exceptional achievement add further dimensions to this conversation. Computer scientist Alan Turing's brilliant work coincided with the isolation imposed by social prejudice. Philosopher Michel Foucault's radical intellectual journey paralleled his exploration of non-traditional relationship models. These examples suggest that the tension between greatness and conventional relationships may be particularly acute for those whose identities or relationships already exist outside mainstream norms. Not all philosophers would agree with Nietzsche's assessment. Simone de Beauvoir might argue that women's historical preference for ordinary men was shaped by social constraints, not inherent preference. Martin Buber would counter that the highest form of greatness comes through genuine I-thou relationships, not isolation. Contemporary philosopher Martha Nussbaum might suggest that human flourishing requires both excellence and rich interpersonal connections. In The Second Sex, Simone de Beauvoir argued that women's relationship choices were historically constrained by economic dependency and limited opportunities. What Nietzsche interpreted as inherent preference, de Beauvoir would see as adaptation to oppressive circumstances. With economic independence, she believed, women would make relationship choices based on authentic desire rather than necessity. Martin Buber's philosophy of dialogue presents a direct challenge to Nietzsche's view. In I and Thou, Buber argues that the deepest human fulfillment comes through genuine encounter with others. From this perspective, the isolated pursuit of greatness might represent not transcendence, but a failure to engage with the fullness of human experience. Hannah Arendt, who experienced both exceptional achievement and complex romantic relationships, including her controversial relationship with Martin Heidegger, suggested that human excellence reveals itself precisely in the public realm, in interaction with others. Her concept of natality, the human capacity to begin something new, implies that greatness requires engagement with the world, not withdrawal from it. Contemporary feminist philosophers like Martha Nussbaum and Nell Noddings have developed ethical frameworks emphasizing care and relationship as central to human flourishing. Their work suggests that any conception of greatness that requires sacrificing intimate connection might be fundamentally flawed or incomplete. Is the tension between greatness and intimate connection necessarily irreconcilable, as Nietzsche seemed to suggest? Or can we envision new relationship models that accommodate both? Some possibilities include relationships between equals, pursuing their own forms of greatness, temporary periods of separation for creative, intellectual work, balanced with periods of connection, mutual understanding about the demands of exceptional pursuit, and redefining greatness to include relational achievements alongside individual ones. The historical pattern of creative partnerships offers one alternative model. Consider the relationships between Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, Pierre and Marie Curie, or Georgia O'Keeffe and Alfred Stieglitz. These partnerships, while not without conflict, allowed both individuals to pursue exceptional achievement while maintaining meaningful connection. Another model involves what we might call relationship rhythms, alternating periods of intense focus on individual pursuit with periods of genuine presence and connection. This approach acknowledges the need for solitude without sacrificing relationship entirely. Some exceptional individuals have found partners who understand and support their pursuit of greatness, even when it requires unusual arrangements. Composer Gustav Mahler's wife Alma gave up her own compositional ambitions to support his career, though this sacrifice later became a source of resentment. More equitable arrangements might involve mutual support for each partner's distinct pursuits. Contemporary relationship therapists like Esther Perel suggest that maintaining some psychological distance, what she calls erotic space, may actually strengthen relationships rather than weaken them. This perspective suggests that the tension Nietzsche identified might be productive rather than destructive when skillfully navigated. Today's relationship dynamics differ dramatically from Nietzsche's era. Economic interdependence has largely replaced dependence. Educational and professional opportunities have expanded for all genders. Relationship models have diversified beyond traditional marriage. Technology offers new ways to maintain connection despite physical separation. These changes create both new challenges and new possibilities for balancing the pursuit of greatness with intimate connection. Economic shifts mean that relationships are now more often chosen based on personal fulfillment rather than necessity. This creates the possibility for more authentic connections between individuals pursuing their own forms of greatness. The expansion of educational and professional opportunities means that all genders now face the tensions Nietzsche primarily associated with men. Women pursuing exceptional careers or creative pursuits encounter similar challenges in balancing achievement with relationship. Relationship models have diversified far beyond the conventional marriages of Nietzsche's time. Polyamory, long-distance relationships, living apart together, LAT arrangements, and other alternative structures provide new possibilities for combining intimacy with individual pursuit. Digital communication technologies allow new forms of connection across distance and time. Partners can maintain intimacy even during periods of separation, necessitated by the pursuit of exceptional achievement. This technological mediation creates new possibilities for resolving the tension Nietzsche identified. The changing nature of work itself has implications for this discussion. Remote work, flexible schedules, and the blending of personal and professional life create both new opportunities and new challenges for balancing achievement with relationship. How might Nietzsche's insight apply to our lives today? For those pursuing exceptional achievement, recognize the potential tensions your dedication creates in relationships. Communicate openly about your needs for space and focus. Create intentional boundaries between work and relationship time. Seek partners who understand and support your pursuits. For those in relationship with high-achieving individuals, understand the value and importance of their pursuits. Develop your own sources of fulfillment and purpose. Establish clear expectations about presence and availability. Appreciate that their dedication is not a reflection of your worth. For couples navigating this tension together, create relationship agreements that honor both connection and individual pursuit. Develop rituals for transitioning between work and relationship space. Celebrate each other's achievements as shared victories. Recognize that different phases of life may require different balances. From a societal perspective, we might consider how our cultural narratives and institutions could better support both exceptional achievement and meaningful relationships. Workplace policies, educational approaches, and media representations all shape our understanding of this tension and our ability to navigate it successfully. Nietzsche's observation invites us to consider fundamental questions. Must greatness come at the cost of intimate connection? How do we balance our individual potential with our relational needs? What models of relationship might support rather than hinder exceptional achievement? Can we redefine greatness to include relational excellence? Philosophers throughout history have grappled with similar questions. Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, human flourishing, suggests that excellence must be balanced with friendship and community. Taoist philosophy emphasizes harmony between opposing forces rather than the triumph of one over the other. Contemporary communitarian philosophers argue that human excellence can only be properly understood within relational contexts. These diverse perspectives suggest that while the tension Nietzsche identified is real, it may not be as absolute or irreconcilable as he sometimes implied. Perhaps the highest form of human excellence involves not choosing between greatness and connection, but finding ways to integrate them. This integration might look different for different individuals and in different cultural contexts. Some may find ways to pursue greatness while maintaining conventional relationships. Others might create alternative relationship structures that better accommodate their pursuit of exceptional achievement. Still, others might move through different balances. At different life stages, the key insight may be that this tension requires conscious engagement rather than default patterns. By recognizing the potential conflict between greatness and relationship, we can make more intentional choices about how to navigate it in our own lives. Nietzsche's provocative claim about women and great men reveals a deeper truth about human experience. There exists a fundamental tension between the pursuit of exceptional achievement and the maintenance of intimate connection. Rather than seeing this as a criticism of either relationships or greatness, we can view it as an invitation to conscious engagement with one of life's central challenges. By acknowledging this tension, we might develop more authentic relationships and more sustainable forms of greatness. The challenge Nietzsche identified remains with us today, transcending gender and historical context. How do we honor both our highest aspirations and our deepest need for connection? Perhaps the answer lies not in resolving the tension entirely, but in embracing it as a creative force. The very difficulty of balancing greatness and relationship might itself be part of what makes both pursuits meaningful. In navigating this challenge, we participate in a fundamental human dialogue about what constitutes a well-lived life. As we conclude, let's remember that Nietzsche himself continued to value human connection even as he pursued his solitary philosophical path. His friendships with contemporaries like Richard Wagner, before their famous break, and his student Heinrich Koselleck reveal his own struggle with the very tension he identified. In his personal letters, we find a more vulnerable Nietzsche than appears in his published works, one who longed for understanding even as he pushed the boundaries of conventional thought. This suggests that even for the philosopher who most eloquently articulated the conflict between greatness and relationship, the desire for connection remained a powerful force. Perhaps the highest wisdom lies not in choosing one path over the other, but in embracing the creative tension between them, allowing both our drive toward exceptional achievement and our need for intimate connection to shape our lives in dynamic interplay. If you found value in this exploration of Nietzsche's challenging idea, please subscribe for more philosophical content that examines the timeless questions of human existence. In our next video, we'll explore Nietzsche's concept of the will to power and how it shapes human achievement.